Welcome everyone to the Note Queen podcast, Owner Financing and Notes. This is Dawn Rickaba, your host, and I'm so excited to share someone that I just met, Darlene Root, when we were recording something for Cashflow Expo. And I just had an instant affinity for her, and I just couldn't wait. And she was so gracious to come on and spend a few minutes so that you can hear you can be eavesdropping as I get to know her and figure out what makes her tick. And so, Darlene, thank you so much for coming on the program here and spending some time with me.
Well, Dawn, it's incredible to be here. And instantly we connected when we were doing the Cashflow Expo. So I think it's going to be the Mutual Adoration Society right now. Because I just think you're amazing what you're doing in, with the cash flow. For those individuals who haven't listened to it, I'm sure Dawn can send you a link to go ahead and get a pass. I think the recordings are going to be up lifetime if you get a VIP pass.
But anyhow, and so I want your quick pitch because you've been in business. Okay, in this segment of how you got started in real estate, because here we are, we're not exactly 18 anymore. And you have just been in it so long. So you probably have done every which way of doing business. And you've seen all the different markets. A lot of the young investors, they don't seem to have, if there's 30 somethings, they don't have, even me. So I'm not young, but I didn't quit my nursing job till 2004 and start really looking at the investment world. So you have a lot more of you've seen it all. So will you please just introduce how you got started?
Yeah.
And we're going to go into some other things we started before the recording that I just really think are juicy bits that we're all going to enjoy.
Yeah, I would love to. So I was sharing with Dawn that I got into this crazy industry when I was 19 years old. And the year was 1979, so you don't need a calculator to figure out what was going on. I was a 19-year-old kid, and during that time, women were not in real estate. Mm-hmm. And so in the 1970s, for those of you who are fairly new in this industry, we had two recessions in the 1970s. One was in 1975, and I was sharing with another group. We did that so well. We thought we would do it again, and we did it again in 1979. And then on the heels of that, interest rates went from low single digits to a recorded 15.6%. And I had seen them as high as 22.8%. And so in that decade, in the 80s, we created creative finance. And we had to get super creative. We did wraps and blends and owner. Back then you could assume a mortgage. Now you really can't. There are rules to do that. Right. So I had the distinct privilege of getting in on a down market. And all of our new investors, if you've only been in this industry for 10 years, I always say shift happens, because it is going to come to a country, and it's already here. A lot of people are kind of pivoting into doing some creative finance. What's unique about what's going on now that wasn't really a big deal then is that there was a lot of regulations and laws that were not in place back then. It was a wild, wild west. We were doing everything. Now there's a little bit more constraint. And so I say, don't go it alone. Get a great mentor to take you through. There's enough stuff on the internet that you can learn for free. But if you are not, matched up with somebody who's been there and done that, you might want to do that to save your shirt.
Right. Just for perspective, I mean, you talk about those interest rates, and right now people are screaming about, the whole world's coming to an end with market rates at 7%. And so, but the difference is the price points too, right? Yes. I mean, talk about that. It's like, talk about that for context for us that weren't active investors in those 70s.
Yeah. So
then and now,
Then and now, we're going to do a little before and after. Who wore it best, right? This in the 1970s, prices were still pretty low. We had more stay-at-home moms. But here's
Mhm.
what's unique that people don't realize. The interest rates were all over the map, even in the 80s. We had to play that creative finance. We became more creative because we didn't have the mindset that we couldn't do it. And now we're all over social media and they're like, oh, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. I don't know if it's going to be a soft landing, a hard landing, or a crash. I've been through them all in
Right.
my 45 years of doing this business. And I'm still here and I've pivoted my business. We didn't have, the information that we have now. The media was still churning out what they wanted us to believe. But
Right.
you watch the signs of the times, and I had, like I said, the distinct privilege of really aligning myself with my first mentor who taught me how to read what's going on. Just don't listen to the daily news. I haven't watched news. I haven't watched TV in 5 years. I get my news source, right? I don't play on social media because, boy, you just want, at the end of the day, you just want to go slit your wrist because
Yeah.
it's just all
Yeah.
doom and gloom out there. And what I say to people is it's not, you have to have the right mindset. You have to stop listening to the noise, stop listening to what the media is. It used to be we report, you decide, and now it's they decide, and then they report, and then we have to believe. So mindset is just a huge, huge thing in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So, then what are you focusing on now? Okay, since
Yeah.
you've done everything, and what is it where you see the opportunities are, and at this stage in your career, what is it that turns you on?
Yeah. So you and I both do note investing. I think it's the most fun of anything in the real estate space because you can do so many things with a note that you can't do. I mean, there's only so many ways you can wholesale a piece of property. You can
Right,
do a reverse wholesale or all the cool buzzwords that are out there and
right,
a reverse flip and all of that. It's all just window dressing for the same thing that we've been doing,
right.
reverse lease option. What's unique about the note space and it's I'm doing some micro lending, which a lot of people may
Talk
not
about that.
know. Yeah, let's talk about micro lending. So when I take a new investor, when I'm coaching them, some of them have never invested in anything before. And so as their mindset is shifting, and we'll go probably through what it is that I do in that space, is I try to get them, or at least I encourage them to get a self-directed IRA. I'm a huge fan of tax deferred. My favorite is tax free. I always tell people I'm
Right.
allergic to taxes. So the
Yeah,
Roth,
yeah,
right? It's my elixir of choice.
right.
And I say that you can make big money with small dollars. Start off with micro lending. One of the spaces that I do it in and teach my students is prosper.com.
Hmm.
And you can buy a micro loan for as little as $25, not buy, but you're going to invest in a micro loan for as little as $25. And I encourage my brand new investors, don't go over 25 bucks. So if somebody's looking to get a consumer loan, say 20,000, you're not going to lend the full 20 grand.
Mhm.
You're going to lend $25 toward that bigger loan. And if I have over 600 micro loans, when they pay out, right? Now you're starting to see, and it's tax free. Now you're starting to see some wealth being accumulated. You can do the same thing with M1 is the name of the site, and it is micro investing in exchange trade funds. Now you could do the same thing with stocks. I wear Invisalign, so I bought a micro share of Invisalign braces. Why not? Might as well put my money where my mouth is. That was a shameless plug for Invisalign.
Yeah.
And the name of the call letters, it's Align.
Right.
And so that gets the student used to doing little investments and
Right.
getting dividends or getting a return on their investment.
Mhm.
As they start to get seated in that, that's when they can start doing other investing in notes. Again, you and I are huge fans. That's where you come in and teach. The Note Queen teaches them how to do that and in a governed kind of way.
Right. Well, very interesting. So these are sort of crowdfunding platforms, presuming, and I don't know if you follow this, but I gather that it won't be that long before real estate and maybe even notes and loans are tokenized and on the blockchain. And so you
Yep.
can, yeah, and the whole stock market and bonds, what if that you can, so it's definitely a trend. And that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Do you, in the note business, besides these microloans, what's your favorite kind of paper?
Non-performing. I love non-performing paper. Back in when the market crashed in '08, we, as a team, became the 9th largest Fannie Mae broker in the country. And I did not know that. Somebody in my mastermind said, "Oh my gosh, you're Darlene Root. You're the 9th largest Fannie Mae broker in the country." Like, well, put that on my name badge. So we had a team where we would list, because I'm a broker as well, we would list the Fannie Mae properties. And, you know, back then you had to make sure that they were trashed out and make sure the heat was on. And most of our stuff was in Michigan, where I lived at the time.
Is this for
And
REOs?
REOs, yeah, yeah,
Right.
Fannie
Yeah.
Mae REOs.
Yeah.
And the downside of that is we could not invest in
Yourself.
the REOs because it would have been a conflict of interest.
Right.
So I took part of that team and moved them over into the short sale end of our business, because that was huge, huge. That was pretty much 100% of our business at that time was short sales.
Yeah.
And I loved working with the people who were losing the homes, because part of my core is really ministry, you know, making sure that they're calming the fear down and doing all the things that I kind of segued into anyway, right? And I became lifelong friends with a lot of them, and 3 of my staff were actually foreclosure, you know, victims, and they were the best staff I ever had, because were on that part of losing their property, and now they're coming in and really mentoring the new people that were losing their property. So fun part of the business. Then it got heavily regulated because we were doing some interesting things with creative entity structuring. And so that,
You
look,
gotta keep one, you just gotta keep one step ahead all the time, don't you?
all the time, when they zig, you got to zag.
Yeah.
And so even in the note space, you know, Dodd-Frank, I call him Dodd Frankenstein, but Dodd-Frank came about, and the SAFE Act. And so it was done differently because it was more regulated. More regulations are going to happen. It is not going to be a thing of the past. It's only going to be a thing of the present and the future. And you have to learn how to navigate that. Get yourself seated well with somebody who's been there and done that. I'd like to say we're seasoned. We're not old. We have some
Yeah.
seasoning on us, where we make great mentors, because I've been through the S&L crisis. I've been through 9/11. I've been through the fallout. So if it happens again, it's all good.
Hey, are you right now buying institutional non-performing notes?
Yes, non-performing, institutional, and seller financed.
Okay, seller finance, performing and non-performing, and probably paper or property too. Like if you get a good deal, because it's the same thing. You might go in the front door as a property, but it turns into a note deal, or the opposite, right?
Or the opposite way.
Right.
Absolutely.
You should be able to take your cash, put it in property, put it in paper, get back to cash, or take cash, go to the note, go back to the property, back into cash, or back into a note, and back and forth and back.
Lather, rinse, repeat, just like the shampoo bottle says.
And then right, and I want to, you segued greatly, and I want to accentuate, because I want to go into this other part where you said my true calling is ministry, and how you were relating with people was, I'm sure, life-changing for them. You changed the course of their life. I have one deal, and this is just one small little example just right now, where it's like I'm looking at my portfolio and I've been just trying to clean it up and saying anything that's just not quite par, I just want to clean. I want to clean things up. And so there was this one gal, and she's been on my books for a long time. It was an owner carry note that I bought on the secondary market. She's been paying. And then this was in Texas. And then remember that big hurricane that came through? It was devastating. I can't remember exactly what year, 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, whole sections. And then, but anyway, I look and I go, oh my gosh. So then she'd pay and then she couldn't, then she went in the hospital and then she's having all these things. But I'm like, she's a year behind.
Yeah. I know.
I go, and then I go, just before I was going to start the paperwork, I tried to give her a call. She didn't call me back. Then I noticed she would send a demand. So I go, oh, she's going to refinance or sell. Something's going good. Great. Well, then it wouldn't happen. So then she asked for another demand and I'm going, please call me. And so she just says, yeah. Well, anyway, long and short of it, I go, why aren't you just selling this? Your house looks to be worth, a good 130 at least, and you only owe me 40. So anyway, she's going, well, I don't know how to sell a house. I don't know what you do. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And she says, but I got this postcard in the mail from someone who says they buy houses. And I go, okay. Yeah, we've all been in the part of the business, but I says, well, what's the problem? Well, what price are they offering you? 65. And I go, really? Then why are they needing 45 days to close? I mean, if you were willing to sell the property at 65, that you closed that yesterday if you're a smart investor.
Yeah.
Anyway, long and short of it, there's another investor. I said, cancel that contract because I mean, I want to get paid soon. Yes, but actually, this is the only money she's going to ever have to start to finish the rest of her life. So right now, she can get 20 from these guys or she's going to walk away with more like, even it's another investor. So what is she going to walk away? 100. She's going to walk away with 3 times the amount, like 60,000. And she goes, oh, thank you, Miss Dawn. I just didn't know what you do to sell a property. And I just had forgotten that there's just sometimes it's that situation. So I'm like, she just feels now, and I feel good because it's like, I'm still going to get paid off. But now instead of her getting 20 grand, she's going to be able to walk away with 60 grand and be able to support herself. So now please go more into how this ministry thing is now and your coaching and what you think is the most important thing. And your mindset and just please, let's spend the rest of the time really exploring some of that because it is pivotal.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So shift happens and your mind shift needs to shift in order to keep up with it. Right. So let me rewind a little bit how I got into actually doing distressed real estate. So when I got into the business, I came in as a real estate agent. And 19 years old, I looked 12 and super unbelievable, right? I'm living at home. I didn't even know what a mortgage was. The real estate exam was, the training then was like, how big is your pocket card that you have to carry and how many feet in a mile? Well, I'm never going to use that really. Well, maybe the feet in a mile. I do know that, especially when I run 5,600.
Yeah.
I do now know that by heart, but do I really need to know how big our pocket license is? And I don't even think we have that anymore. And so it did not equip me for anything real world. I had no clue. I just figured you stay in this house, somebody, this is how you roll. I didn't know you have to pay for it. And so I got into distressed real estate, started doing just a wholesaling, and that was a whole different by accident. And I got burnt out in the late 80s in real estate altogether. I had a team. I was burnt out. I didn't have systems in place. I was working 1 billion hours because I thought that that's what you do, because that's what everybody says you do. You have to work hard in this business, right? You have to be disciplined on. You have to grind. You have to hustle. And so I figured that is what you do. And so I decided I'm done. So I opened up a frozen yogurt business. Now I'm from Michigan and it was a great idea in July. In February, however, where the temperatures are single digit and below, minus wind chill, we lost our shirt. And along with it, we had to go bankrupt and we were facing foreclosure. And because I had some fleeting idea of what real estate was at that time, because this is the late 80s, early 90s. So now I'm in my early 30s. And I contacted the bank and I negotiated with them because I am not moving from my house. I refuse to pack. And so back then, I was able to negotiate it. And just to give you a little color on that, I had a first mortgage. And then when I opened up the frozen yogurt store, rookie mistake number one, never personally guarantee the loan. I did that because I
Yeah,
didn't know. And
right.
so when I lost the store, the equipment lien was on the house. So I negotiated that lien. I negotiated with the first lien holder and I wound up staying in the house. Now, don't try this, people, because you're not going to negotiate with your first lien holder. That was then, this is now.
Right.
But it taught me that you can really negotiate something pretty easy if you know what you're doing. So the second lien was $35,000. I negotiated it down to $175.
Wow.
And they took it because they realized a week later, the end of the redemption period in Michigan, it's 6 months. We were, racing toward the end of that redemption period and they were going to get nothing. And I thought, why would they even take $175? Well, I learned how bank regulations are done and they didn't want the investors to see the loss on the books. So I said, this will catch on. And that started my journey, even in buying notes, because now I understood, what goes on behind that curtain is a lot of smoke and mirrors that the average person doesn't get to see. And so because it could have been such a devastating experience, I said, I am going to do this as my business model and help people that don't know what they don't know. You hit the nail on the head. That woman just did not know how to sell a house.
Yeah.
We take for granted the lingo and the processes. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't know. And
Yeah.
so I had just such a rewarding career doing that, helping people, even if it was avoiding foreclosure and I wouldn't make a dime. I did it because I could feel good. I could sleep with myself at night and go, you know what? You really helped that person out, because there's a lot of charlatans out there that would take advantage. And
Yeah.
so I got back into that hot and heavy. And then you and I talked offline about regulations and different things that had happened even in the short sale space and in the lending space. The shifting of the mindset has to happen. So fast forward going into life, I found it really easy to make money. It was keeping it that was the problem. I would make a bunch of money and then I would lose it on a deal, or I would lose it on a note or a flip, or I would all of a sudden some mysterious big bill would happen. And it
Mm.
always kept me at this one level and I couldn't figure out, why
Couldn't break
is this
that
happening?
ceiling. Couldn't
That
break that
ceiling.
ceiling. Yeah.
It's real. It's a
Yeah.
real thing. And so that made me curious about how the mind works. And I'm talking about years ago. Like, how does this mind really work that keeps us in that loop?
Yeah.
And I would go for the shiny object, which now I look back and that was a good thing because I am very multifarious, talented in a lot of different investing spaces. But the detriment is you're starting one thing and then you're going off and doing another thing without completing that one thing.
Right.
And there's a belief system that has you do that. So I thought I need to nip this in the bud before I go broke because I'm not getting any younger. And the
Right. Yeah.
stakes were always getting higher. And so the last, the end of that whole thing was I invested in a development that I knew nothing about. It was one of the areas of real estate I had not touched on, was property development.
Hmm.
And I initially got involved in this development as the person who was going to structure the entities. I do a lot with entity structuring using trusts and LLCs.
Uh-huh.
And initially, I had no interest in throwing the money in, but I met with the investors who were throwing their money in and helped structure this thing. And as I looked at that investment, it looked too good to be true. Guess what? It was. Another lesson, if it looks too good to be true, it is. And so what we didn't do collectively as a group of investors is we didn't vet the developer properly. We were looking at the dollar signs in our eyes. And completely missed what now looks glaringly obvious was hidden under the greed factor. And it's a thing. And I lost close to $1 million on the
Ouch.
roll of that dice. And it was my Roth IRA. So the profit would have been tax-free. Instead, I blew a huge portion of my retirement. And I thought, I'm not getting any younger. And so I fell into a depression for about 2 years, and I couldn't get myself out of it. It was dwindling away my retirement, which I vowed I would not touch until I was in my 70s, and I'm not there yet. And so I met a doctor. We call him Dr. Rewire. He was able to help me excavate my limiting beliefs, my hidden beliefs, because 95% of our beliefs are below what we're even thinking. It's in that latent awareness, or a lot of people call it subconscious. And I was able to excavate and then rewire those beliefs to where I no longer have any fear about going into an investment. Of course, I also have a really good checklist about how I vet deals.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so I was so enamored with the process that is exactly what I do now.
So was this hypnotherapy? Was this, what kind of, t- come on,
Yeah. The
this is amazing
discipline,
stuff. Yeah, what is it?
it's not hypnotherapy. I have a theory on hypnotherapy that I share with both of my mentors who teach kind of along the same thing. Hypnotherapy compartmentalizes. So if you're trying to quit smoking and you go to a hypnotherapist to quit smoking, you may quit smoking, but it doesn't mean the addiction is gone. It's just the addiction to that particular thing. So you compartmentalize that.
Yeah.
I had such a genuine healthy fear of hypnotherapy from going to see someone on a stage who was making people cluck like chickens and making them act like washing machines. I'm like, oh, that is never going to be a go-to for me. I want to be completely cognizant and aware of what I'm doing,
Right,
that I would
right.
never be able to do that. So it is a multidisciplined modality of being able to get into the subconscious through a series of questions and exercises. Brain training is what I do, where it bubbles up those beliefs and the root experiences that cause those beliefs.
Yeah.
Most of our beliefs happen between the age of 0 and 6 years old. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't remember a lot of what was going on
Right.
when I was 2, when I was 5, or even 6. You know, you'll have a certain memory. Like I remember my 5th birthday, because I've seen, I can't call them video because they had no sound back then, but film of my 5th birthday party. So whenever you have an event with an emotion, that creates a memory. You don't have a memory without the 2. So I always ask my audiences, do you know exactly what you were doing June 1st, 2020? And most of them say, no, I know exactly what I was doing on June 1st, 2020, because June 1st, 2020, I turned 60. And I threw myself a birthday party only because I was tired of being holed up because of COVID. I needed an excuse for people to come over and give me a hug. So I had a bunch of people over. I said, wear masks, I don't care. So for me, there was an event that had a great memory, or a great moment, and that created the memory. So I take the student through a process that goes into their moments, not necessarily their memories, because memories we add stuff to, like the
Mhm.
fish tail. You know, when your dad goes out and catches a fish, the fish is really this big. But boy, when he tells that story, especially after a couple of cocktails, you would have thought he was catching a marlin. Dad, it was a perch, right? Because a
Yeah.
memory will add to it. A moment is in the instant, and you can't change the moment. The moments are the trauma. The moments are the root experiences that create then your beliefs that drive the bus of what you're doing on a daily. And so if we don't know what they are, how? Everybody said, well, just change your beliefs. Well, if you don't know what they are, gone.
Well, this is the crux of so many things that have come out. I mean, remember What the Bleep came out, and then we have, basically mind affirmation things. So everyone's trying to get at this. So I'm curious, how do people understand your modality? Has it a name, or is it just a thing that you talk about? Do you have a website? How do people find out more? Because it's interesting. There was a guy that wholesaled one of my favorite deals that I ever had in my area. He was from the East Coast, and I called him just to go, are you still out there doing it? And this had been a few years. He goes, well, I only work an hour a week now in my business. He has like a multi-million-dollar wholesaling business. They are down 20%, but still doing great. But he says, I had a life-changing thing, and now all I do is just help people change their lives. And it's this whole, the trauma that he didn't know was there that was basically showing up in his 14-year-old kid.
Yep.
And they had to come and treat the whole family. And he says, we think it's coming from your stuff. Did you know that you have a tick? And he goes, no. Anyway, so he spent the weekend, changed his life, and he goes, this is all I care about now.
This is it. This is me. This is all I care. I love doing the other stuff I do, but this was just a transformation that happened in a very short period of time. The process can take a minute, depending on how deeply rooted that trauma is. And I just shared with a person yesterday on a podcast that I absolutely hate having my picture taken. Can't stand it.
Really?
And it's weird because I was a musician back in the day, stood on great stages, recorded in crazy good, recording studios. One of my favorite memories is recording in Aretha Franklin's studio right after she got done recording. She wasn't there. She was leaving. They didn't have time to clean up her microphone and everything. And I'm like, I'm touching the hem of the garment just being here, right? And so not a stranger to the stage at all. Give me a microphone and I'm there singing, and I have no fear of being on stage teaching what I teach. Why didn't I like my picture taken? So, and in even in the mastermind that I'm in right now, there's like 300 people at this one event. I'm not in a single picture, and I avoided picture day. I went and hid in my room. I thought, okay, I need to rewire this. And so I thought I had rewired it. And so when I got back here home to Florida, I needed my promo pics redone because they were ancient. And I was sick of people going, yeah, nice try, Darlene, nice high school photo. It wasn't that bad, but I think my last promo shot was 15 years ago. And I thought it might be time to go ahead and redo that.
Yeah.
And so I booked a photographer and I canceled it twice.
No kidding.
I did. And so finally I went, suck it up, Cupcake, just get there and get it over with. And so when I got there, I was visibly shaking. And she said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. She goes, do you want a glass of wine or something? I said, no. I said, I just have this, this anxiety about this. And then it happened. I sat down and I was doing the poses and it was very rigid. And I'm kind of a free spirit and a bit animated, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah.
I clammed up and she yelled at me. And instantly I went into state and I went right back to 4th grade, having picture day at school.
Oh, yeah.
And I was super white blonde then. I don't even know what color I am now. I was super white blonde then and had cat eye glasses because I had a lazy eye and a patch on this side of my eye. And so they let me remove the patch, but I had on this ugly outfit and my hair was super short. My mom didn't want to be taking care of our hair in the summertime, so she buzzed it off like I was in the military. And so he snapped the picture and I blinked because I had my glasses on. And he yelled at me. He said, listen, little Missy, you better straighten up. You're going to have ugly pictures. And I could see it. I was right there in that moment. And then he snapped the camera again and then yelled at me and I started to cry. So my pictures are of me crying. So when my parents finally got the pictures, my mother was like, these are awful. And so I completely forgot about that. You get older. But in that instant where she yelled at me, I went right back into that. I said, give me about 15 minutes. I need to go do something. And I completely rewired it. I had a blast during the photo shoot. And if you guys want to see it, it's Darlene Fitzgerald Root on Facebook. I had so much fun doing it, would be willing to do it again. But that was the driver of the bus. I did not realize I had a root experience around having my picture taken because I'm a
Right.
ham. I mean, I have no problem. But yeah,
Yeah. Wow. And so there's EFT or
no, it's not EMDR. It's
EMDR, there's all sorts of tapping, there's like what?
yeah, no, and
Yeah.
it's not talk therapy. I have a functional practitioner friend who calls it psychodrama. I looked up psychodrama, and it's really not that. It's a technique that combines NLP, EMDR, cognitive movement, because you are
Huh.
searching in your brain for areas. When I take you to that moment, that's where the work really gets done, because I don't want you to go to a memory. I want you to go to a moment when that initial, like I did when the photographer yelled at me. I didn't have a problem going to the moment. It happened like a flash. I went, oh my gosh, now I see it like right before me. At that moment, you can then rewire that. You can then, and I know how to drill down, and drill down
So
until you get there.
once this mentor or got you out of your depression for those 2 years, then you say, I
Mhm.
want to do this. So you took some training, you got certified,
I did.
how do
I
people
did.
find you? I mean,
Yeah, darleneroot.com is my website.
darleneroot.com. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
have this for anyone listening on different places. I'll make sure you can find this.
And
darleneroot.com.
I call it the real mindset method because, of course, it's for real estate, but it's actually an acronym for something. And
Real. And you've been doing this how long, Darlene?
couple 3 years. Yeah.
It's just so interesting. Like, because you can learn all the techniques in the world, and both of us could probably do a deal 5 different ways, or if not more,
Yeah.
depending on the situation. But if and this is something for me too. It's like, okay, I had this whole stretch of my life. I feel like now, I was on sabbatical for 2.5 years,
Hmm.
not really sure what mattered, what's happening, how does it still make a difference in the world. And so I just love this piece. I mean, now you're the second person in the last month that have said that, yes, I was real successful, I can still do this with my eyes closed, but here's what turns me on: helping people actually whatever they want. It doesn't you don't even have to care about real estate or notes or
Oh,
anything, but what do you care about? And if you want to be able to get there, we have to get past, we're in our own way. And in my own life, I feel like I've been, in the old days, it was therapy, that's what you did.
yeah.
And
Talk therapy doesn't work. It further ingrains it.
right. And
So we
then,
have a lot of psychotherapists who actually go through the certification because they're not making any strides with people. I know somebody who's been in therapy for 25 years and she's still a hot mess. So
yeah,
everybody's trying to put a new belief in, right? Change your beliefs, change your beliefs, change your beliefs. You just have to know your why. It is not enough to know your why. I
yeah,
get people, and there's a book called Getting to Your Why. I'm rewriting the book and I am authoring the book now. Getting to your why not. That's the biggest thing that's holding you back. Everybody has a big why,
yeah,
family, whatever it is.
right.
Look, if it was a big why, then why isn't everyone doing it? It's the why not. It's that 90 to 95% that lies beneath that you don't even know is there,
Mhm.
that's keeping you in that mode, the hamster wheel, so to say. So law of attraction and the secret and all of those things say, well, just
Right.
affirm and do vision boards and all of those wonderful things, sit under a Bodhi tree and wait for it to fall into your lap, does not work because most people are doing it out of the wrong part of their brain. When you excavate and rewire those beliefs that got you to where you are, knowing that they're not going to get you to where you need to be, when you rewire those, then you can use a different part of your brain that is actually used for affirmations, vision boards, mantras, meditations. Everyone's trying it in the wrong part of the brain.
That
They're
is
trying the
so
right process with the wrong part of their brain.
That is so once someone can, then yes, all your efforts will have fruit once you get into, as you say, the right part of the brain, so you can actually rewire. And that's phenomenal. What a testament that within 15 minutes of you getting a major trauma trigger, that you could come back and be back to you.
Be back to me.
And
Yeah.
that is so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think
Yeah, pleasure's
I
mine.
really want to find out more about that too. But anyway, well, I think we're going to end the show right here. And thank you so much for being with us. I hope you got some value out of that. And you for sure can check out Darlene at darleneroot.com. And I'll have some links around as you're able. And also don't hesitate to come over to notequeen.com and just become a citizen of the realm. Thanks again, Darlene. This has been fantastic. I appreciate you so much.
The pleasure's mine. Thank you. And thank you, listening audience. It was fun spending time with you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.